bro, what I was thinking is like, bro, it'd be so much dope stuff that people say after I stop recording. I'd be like, dang, that would have been so fire. So I do agree, like just catching some like blooper stuff would be dope.
We just let it rock.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna
yeah.
grab my computer charger real quick.
All right, you good? We just kind of shooting the shit anyway. Um, yeah, this gonna be dope. This is gonna be dope. I'm excited.
Cool. And it still sounds smooth with the mic. I'm trying to make sure it's exactly where it need to be.
Keep
That is
talking.
still.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Whatever you just did, because did you just move? Did you just get closer to it?
Yeah, I just barely like lean into
Yeah,
type shit.
that's
I
what it
need to have this
is,
motherfucker like this.
bro.
I
Yeah,
need to
when
have
you,
that
yeah,
like
it's
this.
a substantial difference from you being right here and you being right there. It's a difference.
Yeah, I see. Okay, I'm gonna just hover over it.
Yeah, don't hurt your back. Don't hurt your back.
You feel me, right? Dead ass.
Yeah, yeah.
Nah,
All
I
right,
got
man. All right, for real this time. All right, James, you gotta say what you say right. All right, let's get it. This is the storytelling piece. This is part. This is gonna go into what we talk about. But like, I'm trying to learn to be a
Yes,
better
sir.
storyteller. Like
Yes,
that's
sir.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah, yeah. All right, all right. So we already recording. So we about to get into it. You can mute yourself. Oh, he already muted.
You know, I never grew up with educators that looked like myself. I always knew that wisdom was a powerful tool, but I also know that oftentimes we neglect it because of who it comes from. No,
Facts.
it's not necessarily just about being a king. It's more so about becoming a kingmaker.
Man, you got to be close enough to relate, but far enough ahead to inspire. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Let's Grow Together podcast, the place where diverse individuals and communities come to serve, connect, and grow in the areas that they're most passionate about. This is your boy James. I am joined with my brother Marcus, as always. Marcus, tap in. Let the people know how you doing.
What's up with you, man? Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Excited for this one. Quick updates. Biggest piece, man. We just copped the van for the young buck. So,
Yeah,
little
yeah.
20 seaters. So now we can push up on them. Transportation's always, an element of any youth provider. So now we got a resource to resolve that going forward. So beyond ecstatic about that. Outside of that, man, life is good, bro. Nothing but
Yeah.
good vibes. How about you, bro? What's new?
Well, first off, man, you got to give you your flowers real quick. We got to go ahead and give you that. But man, let's grow together, family. I gotta give Marcus his kudos because Marcus hit me up like, man, you tapped in with Turo, man. I'm trying to, see what's to it. And we never even had a conversation to further that, right? The man went and overachieved and said, I'm not just gonna get a car, I'm about to go get a van. And the way that he's gonna use it, because we talked offline about it, like, bro, it's gonna not only increase the impact that you have, but it's gonna help accelerate some of the services that you guys offer. And I'm excited to see kind of the fruits of that labor. Um, but man, life is good, bro. Like, bro, I feel like everything that I'm doing right now is purpose behind it. Like there's like a divine energy, and it just feels like, bro, despite some of the ugliness that goes on around in the world, like I'm living a beautiful life and leaving a beautiful impact. And I said it that way specifically just because, like, bro, sometimes we don't give ourselves enough grace and literally pat ourselves on the back for the dope stuff that we
Definitely.
doing. And man, we took part of a powerful training today, and it really just had me just kind of going through my journey. Like, you did that, you know what I'm saying? So really, really feeling
Yeah.
good and charged about that.
Nah, awesome, awesome. It sounds like it was very empowering, man. I sense the energy, so definitely excited to dive into it. I know we will with our special guest, but what you got for us, bro? I know you always got a fire quote. What's next?
Yeah, yeah. This is a good one. And what's crazy is this quote I actually saw on the wall in the training today. So just for the Let's Grow Together family, this we really put this together. You know what I'm saying today. So I'm gonna bring that up. All right. So there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out where they're falling in. And this is from Desmond Tutu. So Marcus, I
Oh
see
man.
you chuckling over there. What comes to mind?
Mm. This is good, bro. This is good because this is a little bit more complex than a traditional one.
Yeah.
Um, what I get out of it is sometimes we like just to put a band-aid on things and kind of look the other way. when it comes to different systems, when it comes to different equalities, when it comes to all these different variables. It almost remind me of man. I saw something where it talked about equality doesn't mean like the same across the board. And it was like three gentlemen that were different
Yeah.
heights, right? And they all had a box, but some people needed two, as opposed to one person needed one. The other one was tall. So really, just making sure that across the board, everybody is taken care of. Everybody has the same abilities, same standards, kind of things of that nature. But ultimately, not just putting a band-aid on things and really addressing it across the board from the spout, opposed to just at the puddle instance. You know what I'm saying? So that joint is dope. Where you find that in the room? You say?
Yeah, bro. It was so. Shout out to Bill Chicago. They have a dope facility, man. There's a peace center. So we were in the peace center for this training, and on the wall there's different quotes. So it's different quotes. There's different native photography, just different things that let you know like they're intentional with the things that's in the room. There's quite a
Makes
few
sense.
quotes. Like, you know me, I'm the quote guy, so I was snapping
Yeah,
pictures here,
yeah,
snapping pictures there. I'm adding this to my tool belt, adding that.
yeah.
But before I comment on the quote itself, I want to provide some color to the post or the meme that you were talking about. It was a
Mm-hmm.
distinction between equality and equity. And a lot of
Okay.
times people think that equality means that we're all equal, it's all the same playing field. And in the picture that you're talking about, one person was standing on one book, one person was standing on two books, one person was standing on five books. And when they looked over the wall, it appeared that all of them were even, right? And some of them were, some of them were taller than the others, things of that nature, because they didn't have all the resources. But equity is all of them having the exact same amount of books or stepping stones or what have you, no matter how tall or whatever. That's equity. And so when we're in these different spaces, bro, we try to provide equity, saying like, hey, this is your space. So I wanted to just kind of provide a little bit of color on that. But in terms of the quote, bro, you hit it right on the head. I can't say it any differently. Like, a lot of times, like, we try to go after symptoms and not get to the cause, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're the type of people like, I'll give you a prescription, I'll put this band-aid on it, but no one's trying to ask those hard questions, right? I
Mm-hmm.
love giving shameless plugs, but part of our program, we literally talk about evaluating, doing a self-assessment. This is one of the hardest parts, but it's the most important part because it's how you get started. And nobody wants to have those tough conversations and say, this is why I'm deficient in this area. This is why I'm not performing the way that I should in that area. Nobody wants to see the bad thing. I talked earlier about giving grace, but with grace there's honesty, right? There's a bit of humility. But yeah, that's what the quote means to me.
Nah, definitely. That's spot on. It sounds like just a sense of accountability for the community, right?
One
Not
thousand
just from an
percent.
individual perspective. And that's what it really just made me think of across the board is everybody holding themselves to accountable, not just for themselves, but for their partner. You know what I'm saying? For everybody who plays a part in the village. Nah, that's dope, bro. That's probably one of my favorite quotes so far you dropped, man. So you definitely did it again.
Hey man, appreciate it. It's funny, I'm the quote guy, so I'm gonna keep them coming, man. But I'm excited to get my brother's perspective on this, cause this is literally one of my kin. You know what I'm saying? He'll let y'all know what that mean. But
Mhm.
literally a brother since I've connected with. Every time I'm in this brother's presence, it is love and light and happy, like good vibes, bro. I'm talking about from the music, from the photography, just from the creator that he is, man. I'm gonna go ahead and bring my brother on, but I would love to get your perspective on this quote. So without further ado, my brother Fred, how you doing today, brother?
Yo, man, I can't be anything but great after an intro like that, man. That is very much well received and appreciated and reciprocated, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm gonna be honest, and the fact you even use that quote is crazy because I was in that same room as James today, and that
Yes,
was the
sir.
first thing I saw when I went in there, and I
Yeah,
just stared at it, and I was like, wow, that is like spot on with what needs to happen. It's spot on, especially being people who are naturally drawn and compelled to help. Not out of the transactional perspective, but out of the nature of it's just who we are. That to me is like a healthy challenge to be like, okay, well, how badly do I want to help?
yeah,
Um, and if I really want to do it, then I got to go upstream and find out why they're falling in, and that then becomes like the best part is like, okay, how can I keep or do my best to help people from falling in, rather than just trying to pull them out. I think this quote is like it just speaks for itself, man. It's a challenge, but it's also clear and easy to understand.
yeah, for sure. I think about like like choose your hard, right? It's hard to
Mm-hmm.
jump in and keep pulling people out of the water. It's definitely tough, right? But it's much harder to go upstream and find out why do people keep falling in there. But I think people will
Mm-hmm.
take the easier hard because they're like, oh, this is right here in front of me. Let me just save them. But like you said, bro, like let's see how much you really want to help. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but
Absolutely. That's a great point. Choosing your heart. That yeah, for real.
yeah, I mean, like first, obviously we wanna get into you, but like, yeah, bro, think about it. Like you are doing a 100-day fitness challenge right now, right?
Yep.
And think about it. You could choose your hard. You can either choose the hard thing of getting up and going to the gym and intentionally getting better, or you could choose your hard and not get up and then suffer the effect of not getting up and doing those things, right? So you have an opportunity to choose your hard every day. But man, I've talked enough, man. This podcast should be about you, my brother. I would love for you to
Man.
let our listeners get a little bit of insight into Fred. So if you could just, man, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do, and yeah, just introduce yourself to the space.
Man, absolutely. Oh man, this is a new practice for me. I feel comfortable with transparency. That's just a part of my being. So I'm comfortable voicing this is a new practice, having space for me to speak about me. So I appreciate you too for even offering it. But my name is Fred Brandstrader, Fred Lucas Brandstrader Jr. I'm going to speak positively on my name out of
Yeah,
today's
yeah,
practice. Um, and yeah, I'm from just outside Chicago, the Oak Park neighborhood, if you're familiar with it. I had done 2 years out in New York for school, then came back and finished my degree over at IIT over in Bronzeville. And since then, I've been jumping into the creative world. I first started through photography, um, something that I kind of fell into. Didn't totally expect myself to do that, considering I went to school for psychology. And then next thing I know, I was playing music. I was playing instruments, specifically the bass guitar. And one thing led to the next, man. And I found myself starting a business centered around the creative services in general, from photography, videography, music production, experience curation, and now leaking into mentorship. So there's a whole lot that encompasses that, but that's the consolidated umbrella version of what brings me here today talking to James, given I met him through a Greater Good Foundation doing the mentorship work, working with some wonderful individuals, helping to do exactly what that quote highlights, to be completely honest. It's, getting in the stream with some people who are willing to swim up it and find out why people are falling in while also still pulling people out. Um,
that's
so I'm
dope.
I'm honestly even more comfortable too with you hitting me with questions because there's a whole lot to me. There's a whole lot to all of
Oh,
us. So I don't
yes,
know where to
sir.
start.
Yeah, yeah. Trust me, we got some questions for you. We got some questions for you. You got
Well,
it, Marcus.
we we definitely do. We definitely do. And again, excited to definitely dive into you and the AGGF team, man. Because again, we are already know the phenomenal impact you all are doing across the board. But definitely want to peep your perspective a little bit later on. But I'm interested to know, bro. You said psychology to like creative arts, right? I want to get a little bit more background on that because I'm wondering, is there kind of like a combination between the two, right? The thought process behind the deeper meanings and things of that nature. Like, how did they tie in? And how did you make that transition? Because that's a drastic pivot.
That's a great question. That's definitely something that initially I couldn't identify. I just didn't more so think about the correlations between the two, the connections, because it just was spending my days thinking about things like totally different things, considering it was photo shoots and bookings and client, like working with clients, things like that. To where then upon reflection, the more that I got into it, I was realizing like, wow, this directly correlates with what I was studying because it's working with people. You know what I mean? All the things I was studying in class were um, figuring out and understanding how and why we do things from at least the academic perspective. And I just noticed like, dang, there were things that I was experiencing in my interactions with people that I'm like, wow, that is kind of like what we talked about in class. I'll give school its credit in that sense. That
Yeah,
there were definitely some things we covered that I wasn't here to act as a psychologist and like diagnose somebody with something, but more so just having some more awareness as to how to distinguish certain behaviors and understand them and what might be causing them, so that it was a little bit less, how would I say, conflicting or like rooted in conflict. I could have somebody do something or experience something with somebody and be able to tie it to something I learned about to be like, okay, well, let me treat them with a little bit of grace because there might be X, Y, and Z that's coming with it. Um,
That's
And then
real.
the transition was like, I think the best image I could put to it is like jumping on a water slide backwards. I was like, well, this seems like it's gonna be fun. Let me, and like, why not? And I was like, I like jumped in it, and it was like I seriously just kind of fell down or fell in it, not even down. It's been an up journey up. But a friend of mine, he was voiced that he needed some extra help doing like second camera work, and I was like, why not? I wanted to get in a creative space, but didn't really want to rely just on the music for making money and whatnot. So I figured I'd give it a shot. He told me, he was like, dang, these are actually like pretty good. He was like, you got an eye for this. And little by little, I realized, I was like, well, yeah, you're right. I am pretty good. So maybe I don't need to be the second cameraman. I could maybe get paid as the first cameraman. There is
Yeah.
a drastic difference in that. And not out of malice, but just more so out of confidence in myself to realize, like, yeah, maybe I actually could do this. So I was working at the time, just doing like odd jobs, working at a restaurant, working at the Christmas market, and I had enough money saved up to where I could get my own camera. And me and him were working at the time, like working with each other, so I got the same camera as him, and which was pretty solid. In the world of cameras, it's not the most expensive, but it definitely wasn't that cheap, because I knew, like, if I'm going to do this, I got to make sure I'm investing in something that its return on investment is going to be
Yeah.
worthwhile.
Mhm.
And just out of the nature of how things go, man, I bought the camera, and just opportunities presented themselves that I was now able to seize. And I was just in the headspace of like, well, this is what I did it for. I'm not going to spend all this money on it and not use it. So just kept giving it a shot, trying it, saying yes to things. And I started getting paid for it. And I was like, wow, this feels much better than clocking into the job that I was working at. So I was like, let me keep trying to do this. And then fast forward, it let me, like, I figured out how to do it a little bit more sustainably and consistently. And I'm still growing through it and learning a lot, but it's come to be something that I've understand, like, wow, you can actually be self sustaining off of these things if you use them right.
And that's real good. But I wanna give you your flowers too, Fred, because I don't think you realize this, but today's training just gave me a new adjective to call you, because you were talking about how psychology translates to the creative space, and you were like, well, I'm not a psychologist where I was trying to like diagnose them or this, that, and the third. Based off the our teacher today, like, you're a healer. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were in the space to heal, and I think a lot of times people heal with their art. So I just want
Mm.
to big you up and give you that too, because a lot of times we don't think about it like that. But you kind of mentioned start. Oh yeah, I'm gonna let you receive that. I'm gonna let you
Yeah,
receive
I was gonna say, I appreciate
that.
that. I appreciate that, man, big time.
For sure, man. But I was gonna say, you mentioned starting a business. Um, it's called a new variety, but you told me that's kind of like the shortened version of it. Kind of tell our listeners, like, what was the vision behind it, along with like what's the actual name of the company.
Yeah, for sure. Man, so a new variety is intentionally spelled A dot new variety. Because usually, like, when we spell our names, it's, like, we'll put just like J dot Turner, right? And part of that, it got like consolidated because of just branding, and it's just like how it was looking. It just looked, just transparently, like, it just kind of looked better and flowed better, keeping it at a new variety. But at its root was adventures of a new variety. This was something that I came to mind back in college when I was out in New York, where I had, I was just deep in thought, figuring out, what is special about me, like, what's unique to me. And one of the characteristics that came up is I'm an explorer. Like, I've always been blessed with the opportunity to travel, and just had the natural draw to, like, go see the world, go wander, and just, even if it's like all the way to Spain to just like the backyard somewhere, I'll just go wander around and explore it. And it led me down a train of thought of like, okay, well, who is like a model for an explorer? Um, and transparently, like, the first person that came to my mind was Christopher Columbus, because that was like the first name that always came to my mind with exploration, because that's just like what I was always taught, right? But then deeper into that thought, I'm like, but I'm not trying to explore like he explored. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For all the reasons that we all know.
Hmm.
And it led me to that new, like, notion of new variety. So, like, adventurers, I'm an adventurer, but it's of a new variety. Like, we're gonna do things a little bit different. And because I personally admire, just not even him, but just people in general who throughout lifetime have explored and wandered and adventured out into the world. And now it's time for us to do it in a little different way, because me and my friends, we don't all look like Christopher Columbus. Let me just put
Yeah.
it like that. And that's one of my favorite parts about the people that I'm surrounded by, is that we're a variety, we're a mix, well, all the way from how we look to just how we think and act and do. And so I was like, dang, yeah, that feels like that's in perfect alignment with what I'm trying to do, let alone as a business. I don't want to consolidate myself to one facet or one avenue or medium, because I'm naturally drawn to be doing a whole lot of different things. So I figured, let me kind of come up with something that is like an umbrella essentially, that allows me that freedom to be like, yeah, we do experiences, we also do mentorship, we also do video, we do photo, because it's a variety. Like, as I told you, what we're going to bring you is going to bring something different. It's not going to be
Yeah.
just one thing. So I don't want, I didn't want people thinking like, oh, we're just going to hire you for this. It's like, you could, but like, I also am going to bring the music, the people, the space curation, the furniture, the smells, like
Yeah.
everything. I'm gonna bring a mix.
Bro.
So yeah.
Bro, remember earlier when they were like, and we were in the session and they were battling with the word training. They were like, "Man, I hate saying training because you feel like you're supposed to leave with something that's transactional." And I literally just had that when you were talking, and I thought like what you provide is an experience. The same thing I
Mm-hmm.
said in the class. I was like, it's an experience. You know what I'm saying? So, I
Yes.
love that, bro. But you real quick, you talked about like being an adventurer. How does someone your age end up backpacking across Europe? How does that happen?
Man, I'd say I want to first acknowledge from a surface level and a societal level, there were a lot of people that did what they did with their lives that led me to be able to do that. I want to
Okay.
first voice that it wasn't even just me. And I need to give flowers to all the way from my parents to the people just who I may have not even interacted with, who had sacrificed and done what they needed to do so that I was in the position to be able to do that. From a physical, like fiscal standpoint, wasn't even necessarily saying like it was all funded from some trust fund type thing, but it was like from a fiscal standpoint and from a mental standpoint, I had the awareness and perspective to be able to think about that as just a concept. Like, man, I could actually go do that. I
Yeah.
had been blessed with the opportunities of meeting people and knowing people who encourage that type of exploration. A lot of the people in my circle did not tell me that I had to stay in Chicago. They were like, yeah, you want to go to Spain, but just come up with a plan for it. Like have a reason for going and doing it. And so then that's like kind of, the surface sociological perspective of it. But then from a personal level, I had identified just through time and time reflecting, just day in, day out, I noticed I was, not trying to be like acting from a perspective of like escapism, but noticing like I needed to change my environment. I needed to switch things up. I could at least tell I would have really benefited from it. And I just felt it in my gut and my soul. And then I was like, you feel me? Maybe I go in. Let me go see Europe. Like I know we get as U.S. citizens, we get 90 days over there without needing extra paperwork. Um, so I looked into it, and it's like, if you got your passport, it's a super easy process. And I don't remember exactly what happened this one day, but I had something happen to where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just do this. So I pulled up my computer, bought a one-way ticket to Paris, and bought it for New Year's, because like, it is just a number, but it also has like an impact on our mental of like it being the new year and everything. And I was like, I'm gonna start this new year in a new environment, like doing something completely new, because this is how I want to move forward with, at least right now in my life. I want a change. And so I bought the ticket one way, didn't really come up with a crazy intricate plan for how I was going to go about each day, but I identified like, okay, my plan is to go explore for these 90 days and push myself, knowing that I had the finances to do it. I had the support system, like emotionally, to like, I had people I could call, I knew they'd be like encouraging of it. And I knew I needed to, from an understanding of self. I was like, I need to change. So it's like that whole quote of like, if you want to, what is it? I know, like if you want
Oh,
to see something new, like you got to do something new
yeah.
type of thing.
If you want a different, basically like, if you want something different, you gotta do something different. Yeah,
Do
yeah. I
something
know what you mean.
exactly that. So I was like that was just so in alignment with where my headspace was, that I was like, well, although there's a discomfort that comes at the idea of this, of like not knowing exactly what it's going to look like, I have to. I have to.
Right.
So I bought it. That day came, man, oh man. I mean, I'm not even gonna let myself walk down the whole 3 months, but that's what led me to do it, man. I can't even lie. I ended up over there, and it was like I got there, and I immediately wanted to fly home. I was like, "What am I doing? What was I thinking? I'm walking around Paris, like, what did I just do, bro? I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do, and but I was like, there's just no way I fly back. Like after all this talk that I was talking to, like the people in my circle, it wasn't out of arrogance, but it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna do this. I was like, there's no way I fly back. There's just no way. So let me see it through. And then little by little, the more I spent time over there, the more I just got comfortable with like, damn, okay, this is a blessing. This is a real privilege to be able to be over here having the opportunity to do whatever I want. And I can hop on a train, go to a new country. Just if I wake up in the morning, I want to go do that. I can do that. And so then I started to lean into it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it to this 90 days. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do this. Like I'm gonna find a way to fill this up and make the most of it. And
How
man,
old were
it's
you?
crazy.
How old were you during that
Uh,
time?
that was I was 22.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's Yeah, I don't hear the average 22-year-old thinking about doing that or really just being fearful to be able to move on that, to be honest. So, few things I got out of that, though, just hearing you, right? The the curiousness, right? The curiousness to, one, take the exploration. Two, the grit, and really just the process and the discipline to be able to stick to it throughout that process in a foreign territory, being uncomfortable, but also like the psychology, right? I think this kind of ties back to you. Like, you were curious, you knew something was wrong, and you need to make an adjustment, and you push yourself to do it. So I know there was a lot of internal conversations throughout that process, right? To push yourself to do it,
Absolutely.
really just tapping into self in the midst of it. It sounds like it was like a self healing journey to an extent as well, too. So I'm curious to know as well, man, because like we said, bro, that's a little different. It sounded like it was dope as hell, but like that's a little different. And I'm curious to know, bro, just getting to know you, seeing your aura, your energy. Were you told you were different often, bro? And if so, like, how did you
Hmm.
go about embracing that as well? Because I know a lot of people shy away from that, but you seem to really embody it, and I admire that, bro.
Man, I've never really had anybody ask me this question, but it's something that I've thought about. I wasn't always told that. My mom low key did. My mom low key would like bring it up that I always had like a spark to me. But part of me always felt like she probably says that to all of us. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like all the
That's my
kids. I got a
dude.
couple siblings.
Yeah,
And so she's gonna each tell us, yeah, you're special. You know what I mean? But yeah, really once. Interestingly enough, the more I reflect on it, even right now, the more I became, how would I say, comfortable being myself and like
yeah.
brought my true self to the world,
Mm-hmm.
I started to hear that more and made my interaction with people being like, yo, there's something to you. What is to you? I mean, some people would generally ask, like, what's to you, man? Like, why are you, like,
Mm-hmm.
who are you? Like all of that type of questioning. So, yeah, low-key, people did start asking me that, but that really came towards, I guess, kind of college, because that was when I really got to hit that phase of like reinventing myself, and really being myself. Because high school, there's still like kids, and I guess college we are too. But I moved away. I was in New York City. I was in a different environment, so I had this opportunity to really like start to be and practice being myself. And since then, people started to ask me that type of stuff.
No, that's good, man. Fred, I say this and I mean this like honestly. Like I am a fan of yours. I don't know if you could tell, man. Like I am genuinely a fan because I'm a fan of your curiosity. Like it's just like a curiosity to life. And it's funny because I liken myself to like I really do enjoy stories. And I was watching a podcast recently with Shannon Sharp and John Cena. And John Cena was just like basically like I live my life with this curiosity. Like and he was talking about how he just went on the Oscars with just the car. He was naked with a card, just the car. And he was like, no, I was legitimately naked. Like I'm not saying you would do that, but I'm just saying like just because of the like I could see you just really not having limits. Like I truly see you not having any limit. And I just want to ask, like, where did that thought process come from? That like, you know what? Like I can actually go to Spain if I wanted to. I could go do,
Mm.
I could do anything that I want to. I could be a creative and I don't have to feel different about it or feel bad about it.
Mm. You know, what first comes to my mind, and I feel so comfortable to voice it, is my parents, bro. Truthfully, I feel so blessed that my parents more or less have always told me and encouraged me, like, you can do what you want. It was just kind of like, just don't be stupid about it. You know, it
Yeah,
was, they didn't say it like that, obviously, but they, yeah, man, I could, I don't even want to be redundant about it. Like, my parents, they always would, like, they let me just try it, you know, and I was blessed to be around some friends who brought me, you know, on some trips and stuff like that. So I grew up just like seeing different things, like literally like different types of trees and like different city, you know, like different stuff that I just was always drawn to trying it, you know what I mean? And my parents, they encouraged that. And so then once it hit a point in my life where I was more so living for myself and not just, you know, waiting for my parents' approval on something, I just spent a lot of time by myself. And so then I would just start asking myself all these same kind of questions, like, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to go to see somewhere in the world? And be like, yeah, okay, well, what does that look like? You know, a lot of things we ask the kids when we do this mentorship stuff, of like really painting the picture for what it is that we want to see, was something that I don't know how or why I necessarily started doing it, but it was something I found myself doing. And oh, I'm shaking this. I found myself doing it, and it just, as we know, became a part of how I live my life. I see things into existence. I act them into existence.
Hmm. I really admire that, because something I've just been reflective on from a parent perspective is like, allow and welcome curiosity. I watch other parents. It's kind of weird. It's like that. That's the inner dad in me. I'm like, I want to do that. Like, I'd be
yeah,
watching, and there was a situation. We were in the store, and there was a kid that was just trying to explore something, and the parent kept popping. I'm like, no, no,
yeah.
no, don't do that. And in my head, I'm like, nah, like let him go learn for themselves a little bit. And it's crazy just how like some of those small interactions and things that the parent might not really have thought was that vital, or that momentous at that very moment, for you, allowed you to be able, continue to wander, allowed you to be more curious, allowed you to be more introspective, like down the line as you aged as well. And it's so crazy how, some of those pieces within our childhood really help define somebody, right? A lot,
Hmm.
again, that allowed you to be and explore all the other characteristics we've talked about to this point, was like the element of limitness early though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
We
yeah.
that's just like asking a kid, what do you want to be? They tell you a football player, and you giving them, hey, well, most people get hurt, right? Yeah, it's a true fact, but at the same time, like, let them wander, let them continue to paint that limitless picture, and you still have that aura to yourself, which is dope, man. But I'm curious to know, because I know you incorporate a lot of this with the guys, man. So I want to dive into what it looks like from the outside, kind of looking in. I'm interested to just know from like a mentor perspective and a mentee perspective, like, what was it for you? Because I know where AGF gives so much game that like sometimes you receive it from like a mentee too. You might be talking to the mentees in a session and it hit you like, dang, now that's real. But also then being able to, coach up and develop the next in the form of a mentor. I'm interested to kind of get your thought process around the dynamic, being that you've been introduced to the team in that light as well.
Man, definitely have found myself feeling like the mentee. You know, even when I'm, yeah, definitely feeling like the mentee, man. And James could even attest to it. I'll ask questions. Like, I'm comfortable voicing. Like, if I don't know something, I'd rather just say it. You know, like, say that and learn there, rather than try to like act like I'm supposed to know it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even like getting introduced to them, man, I know that the word goes around the internet so casually now, but just the notion of like energy, and I guess to maybe shift it to intuition, like I could just feel from these guys that, and ladies, shout out to Caitlin and Elijah, the team, you feel me? But I was first introduced to AGGF through the guys, so I'm going to reference them as the guys. And I was first introduced to them, and found myself like I could just feel it and see it, that not only were they like serious like about what they were doing, you know, they walked the walk, you know, that they were talking, and but they did it with a smile on their face, like they have fun while they're doing it. And to me, that's how I feel like I teach and learn, is like I'm super serious about learning and diving into things and figuring stuff out, but I also like in the midst of that can have fun. I have to have fun. I have to be able to laugh it off, and I have to realize like, okay, maybe I'm a little too serious about that. Like, let's just like appreciate that we're in the process of learning something, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so to see that in all of them was so noticeably like, yeah, these are people that I need to be around, especially because I had been voicing for what felt like months, man. I was noticing that I needed more friends in that sense and like new friends. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't from a place of hostility towards the people that I was around, but it was, we talk a lot about environment. It was my environment wasn't as conducive to the growth that I was looking for, that I initially thought it would be. And so then I found myself around them, and I'm like, yo, they're talking about all the stuff I've been talking about, but I've been talking about it in a space that it's not necessarily not being received, but it's not being carried on and transferred. You know what I mean? So it's I would be around them and they'd be giving me game, or I'd say something, they did like genuinely receive it. Next week we come back and they'd be like, yo, I was thinking about that thing you said, and I pick up on that type of stuff, because to me that means like you're actively listening, not
Mm-hmm.
just to make me like help me feel heard, but it's like you're actively listening because you're trying to get better as well in your own capacity. And that, I was like, that's who I need to be around in general, but then even specifically in this moment in life where I was like, I'm on my boss up timing right now. So I need to
Yeah.
be around
Yeah.
bosses, but bosses who know how to communicate and be around other bosses without trying to step on each other's necks to get to that next level of their own bosshood, you know?
Mm. I like that, and I want to talk about that. So what I'm getting is like one, like you were in tune with the squad, right? They got a dope flow, just a sense of energy. But you being able
Mm-hmm.
to hop in that, receive that, be present upon that, really seemed to cause you to gravitate. But it's dope, right? When you change your dynamic, but then you fall right into a family that's already structured, built, have the the unsaid notions where everybody has that across the board. And I'm interested just to hear a little bit about the leadership style, man. Just again, I know the guys, but I know we got some alpha personalities. You know what I'm saying? We got some, and it's a brotherhood, but at the same time, there's a
So
leadership
funny.
dynamic across the board. So I'm interested to get your feedback and perspective on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't really done this type of reflection upon the AGGF team, and I appreciate it because there's so much to dive in with these guys, man, that it's like y'all really deserve your own freaking TV show. You guys deserve series. Man, I've just noticed that they have like you said, they got a flow. Like none of them don't act like themselves, which I think contributes to why everything seems to go so smooth. Now, granted, I'm not in every call for planning every little thing, but the more that I've been around it, the more I realize like nobody puts on a front for who they are or what they're trying to get at. You know what I mean? Which to me makes sense then as to why it's like things can get figured out because everyone is clear and honest, and there's a clear and honest understanding then of like if someone doesn't agree with something, it's a clear cut as to why they don't agree with it, and then they voice it in a way that's healthy and communicative. So then the other person receiving is like, okay, that's what I'm working with. So because they're all just intelligent and intellectual people, they're able to like settle conflict easier. And I remember hearing and reading a quote that was just talking about building community requires conflict resolution. And so within the context of them as a community, and this is an organization, but in this context of community, their conflict resolution seems to be like fantastic, at least from what I've seen. So yeah, they do all have their ability to turn on, you feel me? Like they're all bosses. Like what I'm saying, like they really are all bosses in their own right, but they see the boss in each and every one of them for their own reason as to what makes them who they are. So, and they don't try to dim that light. So nobody, from what I pick up, is feeling like, oh, that person's trying to put me down. It's like, no, they're just like this is what they're hearing and feeling. So that's like, how can I work with that? So they just know how to listen, bro. I mean, I could be real like scholarly about it, but they know how to listen to each other and act accordingly. You know,
It's funny. It was a phrase, and we're gonna get into the training because I keep alluding to it. It was a powerful training.
it was.
But it was a phrase they talked about disagreeing appropriately or What was it?
Disagree well.
Yeah, disagree well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we just learned how to disagree well because the problem was, I think a lot of times in, businesses, corporations, friendships, when people disagree, they think I don't like you, right? Because I disagree with you, I dislike you as a person. Like, no, I just disagree with that idea. And I think sometimes it's not so much what you say when you're disagreeing, is how you say it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I love how you said, like, we know how to listen. And I'm literally practicing this now, because earlier in the training they gave us the practice of, like, when someone's talking, remember, like, not to nod, not to think of questions, like try to, like, actively listen. And that's not something that I do. Like, I do act like listen to the person, but I'm listening with the intent of, like, okay, let me receive it. But I am thinking of responding at some point. So I do love the fact that you said, kind of like, all right, we do, like, we listen, but we're learners, bro. If anything, I would classify us as lifelong learners, because we identify a lot of stuff that we don't know. In terms of leadership, we understand that emotional intelligence is important. Like, people have to feel safe and feel the space to even voice that they disagree with you. And I think the dope part, being in leadership, is like, bro, honestly, and you know me, Fred, I'm speaking personally. I'm not even gonna speak as leadership. I'm speaking eyes. But for me, my entire being and purpose is to make life easier for the people that I come in contact with. So if I can do that by listening deeper, if I can do that by giving advice, if I can do that by giving you a ride to the same program that I was going to, like, none of that stuff really matters to me. The thing that matters to me is impact, and are you happy as a person? Because at the end of the day, like, I could literally care less if you listen to me talk. But at the end of the day, if you do get some of those seeds that I planted, are you happy with the result that you get with the actions that you took? Period. Um,
Man, see, that's what I'm saying though. Like, bro, the good people who know how to listen to each other. I feel like they are a beautiful epitome of a recipe for how to work well, not even just work well with one another, but to build and to cultivate life. I think fusing the whole notion of seeds, they know how to cultivate life, and I can speak on that to your question of like being a mentee in the sense of being around them. Man, I feel so much more alive because of the seeds that they plant in me, and more so the way in which they know how to water the seeds that they've already noticed I've planted. They don't try to change everything that I've been doing or tell me to change everything I've been doing or how I've been thinking. When they notice something's working, they water it. They don't try to dig it up and then plant their own seed. They'll be like, no, you got something going. Let's water it, whether that is a ride, whether it is advice. And then sometimes, and I've seen it and felt it in my own experience, they will dig up a seed in a cool way. It's like they'll be like, "Oh, that's a bad seed." No, we wanna, or at least more so encourage me to dig up the seed, my own seed, and then change it, and then reap the benefits of what comes with that. Man, they're special, bro. I'm comfortable giving flowers. They're special for real.
He's on fire!
he said it, not me. You know what I'm saying? He said it, not me.
Nah, it's definitely necessary, and anytime you can work with individuals that feel like family, man, it's just a smoother operation altogether. So nah, again, flowers are definitely necessary. Now, bro, I want to hear more about this training, bro. Like, y'all keep talking about it, like, y'all gotta tell the people more about the training, bro. Well, what happened? Tell me more.
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of like an introduction of it. Like I mentioned earlier, it was a restorative practice training. So Fred and some of the other mentors are in the process of becoming trained practitioners. But the dope part is, as a practitioner myself, I love going to other people's training to see how they train. And Fred can attest. Who was the loudest in the room today? Like, I'm talking about, I'm in that joint, like, bro, it's almost like if there was like a gadget, like a all you can eat gadget fair. Like, you get a gadget, you get a gadget. I'm adding shit to my tool belt. I'm talking about everything they were saying, bro. Yeah, we got to put that in the tool belt, bro. It was so transformation. It was like so transformative, bro. But basically, there's these two Native Americans, right? One name was Ray, one name is Erica, and basically Ray was telling his story. He's a Vietnam vet. He talked about how he battled addiction. He was shot in Vietnam. Talked about having PTSD, and then just talked about how his tribe uses restorative practices, but they call it peacekeepers. How they use the peacekeeper practices to basically restore, like, bring people back to harmony. Like, I actually got the printout right here, because it was so much hot stuff, bro, that I was like, it literally had me, yes, you know what I'm saying? Like, it literally had me thinking about my journey, bro, because like this is the powerful piece about storytelling, and I would love to get Fred's perspective on like one like some of the takeaways he had as well. But like he told his story, and I literally saw myself in his story, like not his exact story, but there was a version of me that was like, oh my god, that's what I need to figure out. And it was so powerful that several people in the room was in like, I need to do that. I need to have that type of realization with myself, because that, like, I need to get to that. Like, and it's almost this like unconscious competent piece where it's like we're getting success, we're winning, but like there's another level, there's something missing. And like some of these practices that we went into was kind of like, bro, you ever had a puzzle that was missing a piece, and you put the whole puzzle together and you can't find that piece, but then somehow, some way, you look under the cushion and you find it, bro? That's how I felt in this training. I'm like, that's it. That's it. I put that piece in place, and I'm like, let's get it. Um, but I would love for you to add some color to this too, Fred. Like what was your perspective on it, and then like some of like the major takeaways.
Man, so, so this was my first yeah, my first training session, I guess, in this sense. Well, I guess technically second. Like we had done some, I done one with the AGGF team, but that was a little more focused on their curriculum in that sense. But this is my first time doing this in a space of like completely random people in that sense. And man, it was just powerful to say the least. You know, like spiritually powerful. Like I left out of there like feeling fired up. You know, that feeling of just being charged up and fulfilled from good conversation, good emotion. You know, a whole array of just experience within the one experience. Um, and man, I could really go on and on about it, but I think one of my biggest takeaways was having the space to learn how to speak and listen, whether it's about your story or hear someone else's story or just what you're going through and figuring out, even when it's in a time or a place that's more or less like random and spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
It can be that piece that James is talking about, it can be that thing that just tips us over the edge, that because it was so unexpected, it's so clear as to like, wow, I needed this, you
Yeah.
know? And that's what it was for me. I didn't totally know about the train until, you know, like relatively close to the time that, you know, it was happening. And I could just feel, I was like, yeah, this is something I should do for just this big picture journey of becoming a practitioner and learning more about it. But then I find myself in the space being like, yo, I need this just for my human, you know, for my human
Yeah.
experience. Like I needed
Yeah.
these conversations, and I would have never guessed or painted the picture that it would be happening in this room, in this building, with all these random people that I didn't know, you know. And it just proved to me that it is really powerful to hold space for people to just ask these questions that seem so simple, and just to
Yeah.
like talk about yourself or talk about themselves and share their story like that. Having that time set aside to be like, no, talk about it, like let us know who you are, share
Yeah.
that with us. It's something that's so easy to say to people, especially like the kids, and tell them like, what are your dreams? But then it's easy to get caught up in that and not take the time to actually do it. So man, it was powerful, I think, to say the least. It was a powerful experience.
For sure, for sure, man. I actually wanted to look at this because it was like I was writing notes, and I didn't want to not touch on some of the takeaways because it was fire, bro.
Yeah.
Um, specifically on the piece about storytelling, because we literally know everything we do is storytelling. This podcast, we're storytelling right now as we talk. And something that they said, in terms of being a restorative practitioner and trying to restore harmony, and it's so dope because I now, as a practitioner, I don't even want to say I want to restore harm. I want to restore harmony. That's how I'm looking at it. Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times I say restoring harm, but basically they said tell a story, not your full story. Like get your point across. Like you don't have to give all the details, right? That's not important. But the my biggest takeaway, I'm talking about, if I only walked in the lad like for this part, I would have been like, I'm fulfilled, and I guarantee this would change my life as a mentor, right?
Mm.
So it says, speak from your scars, not from your open wounds. And
Yeah, yo, yes, I
yeah,
knew that was what you were about to say. I was like, yeah, that was, yo, that hit
bro,
everybody in the room, bro.
bro. When I say, bro, and this, this is it's crazy because the exercise was for us to like tell our story, and she gave us several prompts to tell our story. And Fred, I tried to tell you my story, and could I? No, because I was trying to tell a story that still had open wounds. And but when she said that, she didn't say it until after I was telling them. But I was like struggling so hard. I was getting so emotional. I was like, bro, like I don't know why I do this every time. I'm like I was getting frustrated because I'm like I shouldn't be getting emotional. I'm just trying to tell a story. And when she said that, bro, I swear, I'm like I'm getting emotional now telling y'all. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, I was like, that was it.
Mm.
I was like, that was it.
Damn, yo,
Man, man.
that's tough. That's tough, and I really like that, man. It's crazy you say that because that just makes me think about like some of the circles we have had where like we gotta take somebody out, and it's because they're still currently dealing with it, right? Opposed to having a resolution, being able to look past it, and now can look back and reflect on it. And it makes me think about Napoleon Hill always talks about love, right? Love. People who are very salty about love miss the experience within itself. But right,
Yeah.
once your heart is
Mhm.
broken, it heals. You can reflect on the love. You can now tell your story and educate somebody. But if you're still sickened because of it, that story hit a little different, right? And again,
Yeah.
some of those things are triggered. So that's what it really made me think of. But bro, that's powerful. Like that's something I'm gonna put in my tool belt too. So look, I need y'all to keep throwing them this way because
Yeah, yeah.
that's
I
good
got.
right
Hey,
there.
listen.
That's
I
good.
got some more for you, man, because it was valuable. Because again, I want to provide some color, man. So there's this concept of Hanjong, and hopefully I'm doing justice saying it because I tried to put in parentheses how I should pronounce it, but it's Hanjong. And that principle is basically to be in a state of Hanjong, you have reached self actualization, right? And so basically, when we are trying to restore harm, we are trying to get to a space of hajon, basically, right? So this is how he explained it to us. And basically he said this is a space where we are happy, right? We're positive, we're good, we're productive, we're accomplishing, we're in harmony, we're complementing, we have balance, we have respect, we have spirituality, and then we have serenity. So it was like one of those things where I'm like, dang, it gave me a blueprint of like when I think of restoring harm, it's like, how can I dictate if I'm really restoring harm or not? And like, even if I don't check off all these boxes, it gives me a framework of thinking like, all right, after we had this conversation, like, do we have a deeper understanding, right? Do we have a respect for one another's opinion? Is there any harmony? Was it a productive conversation? Like, just literally, I'm able to look at this and be like, all right, bet, right? So that was one of my largest takeaways too. And then shout out to Ray, man. He said the creator, he was really smart and very intentional when he did this. He gave us two listening devices. He said, and he gave us one mouth. He was like, so you should do twice as much listening as you do talking. And I'm like, as simple as that is, and as many times you heard that before in your life, it was like, it was so powerful. Like, bro, listen more than you talk, because when you listen, you learn. When you talk, you telling people what you know.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm.
Man, I'm so glad you touched on that. I have that tattooed on me for that exact reason. When it first
Really?
hit me, it absolutely. It's not fully listed out, but it's two next to ears, and then it's one next to a mouth. Because my friend said it to me years
Wow.
back. He was like, "We have two ears and one mouth for a reason, big dog." He said it just casually, just like
Mm-hmm.
saying it, and I was like, "Damn." And it hit me like a rock. I'm like, yo, you are right. Because I've always been
yeah.
known for babbling. So
Yeah.
it truthfully put like shifted my perspective to be like, what would happen if you started listening more? And
Mm.
man, that's something I would 100% continuously ask myself and just other people from a human to human. Like, what would happen? What happens when you listen more?
Yeah.
And it's
Mm.
profound. It really is.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed you all's reflection and just you all feeding off each other's energy too naturally, man. I know the whole squad does it, but now that's a beautiful thing to see, man. I'm interested to as we get ready to kind of pivot to our growth segment, man. Like I'm interested to really kind of hear your perspective on some of the things we had from our last guest, but even more excited to really get your gem or your nugget quote, whatever that may be in the form of your growth segment as well, man.
Yeah.
So James, what do we have for our growth segment, good brother?
So right before I do the growth segment, I would be doing our listeners a disservice if I did not mention this on our podcast. Fred, let talk to our listeners about CF kids and that experience. If you
Oh,
yeah. I'm like, man, if we don't
Yeah,
talk about this on the podcast, we not doing our listeners a service. So
yeah. Absolutely.
for context, listeners, remember a couple podcasts ago, we were like, man, we made a song. I was like, man, I'm a producer. I was in there mixing stuff together, all that good stuff. But Fred was a major part of that process. So I would just love for you to talk about how we created the idea, a little bit about how we put it together, and then how that finished product came to be.
Yeah, man. So the CF Kids, that was a mentorship program with this church over on the south side, like 111th or something. And we had come together to figure out and realize that we wanted to approach this a little bit different and get a little more creative with it than the typical, circle keeping and whatnot. We just kind of wanted to try something new, specifically because two of the mentors that were a part of it were me and Juwan, who are both artists in our own capacity, and then there was James, who's also an artist in his own capacity. And so we were like, all right, well, let's maybe give our hand at bringing some music into this. And there was a progression, meaning like a series of chords that I had heard from a friend of mine's song that had a little more spice to it, had a little bit more, flavor to it because he was rapping on it. He had a whole little song to it. And they came to my mind. It was like, okay, let me break these down and see what happens when we bring these to the kids. And so we came up with the idea of like putting together this song and doing it with the kids. Like, let's build it. Cars outside, building up this song with the kids. And it was definitely one of those things where we were learning as we go as to like how to best facilitate that, because some kids weren't interested or some kids didn't want to play the instrument they first were trying. It was like it took a little bit of just test runs to let them just make noise, because at the root of it, from my intention was the healing of just having the space to make noise.
Yeah.
Like just make noise. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, no one's gonna judge you. Just make noise, get loud. And then it trickled into like, okay, let's put together this piece. We gave them the chords, came up with like, we broke them into groups, gave them the chords. Some groups worked on the melody, some groups worked on the percussion and giving us a beat, and then some group worked on writing some lyrics to it. And then we just kept showing up. It was once a week. We kept showing up and slowly chipping away at it. And then man, the more we practice it, the more it just kind of had a little bit of cohesion to it. We're like, all right, this is actually kind of making some progress. We were like, well, let's record it. Let's not think too hard about it, because that was also the root of it, was to encourage creativity in these kids, and creativity, like, how would I put it? Like loose creativity, like don't worry about getting caught up in producing the best, most polished song. Like, it's this practice and being a musician. A lot of it comes with just making the noise, and then practicing, recording it, putting it down, polishing it, and then on to the next idea, in any capacity, not practicing, not being too attached to the idea. Like, let it, just throw it out there, feel comfortable that you learned and tried it, and then go to the next. We put it down, recorded it, had like some of the kids remembered the verse. They came up with, they had a little verse thing put
Yep. Had the
together, a
little
little
chorus.
chorus.
Yep.
And then we practiced it, recorded it, and then that, pretty much by the end of that, it was the end of the program. And we had a little rough draft going that was like, all right, this sounds cool. This sounds like a school project. It sounds like something that you turn in. And we were very happy with it because the kids had fun with it. And then James, Juwan, and I linked up afterwards to re-record Juwan's verse, and we just added, a little bit of polish to it. Then we played it back. We were like, wait, what? Like, this is
Yeah.
actually decent. Like, this is, it wasn't a full 3-minute song, but it was like a minute 30 that, especially nowadays, it's like, that's solid. Like, people will listen to that. People will play it back and just like take it in. And, ultimately wasn't about really what people liked about it, but for the notion of like proving to these kids that they can make something, they can create something, and they can reach the world, and it can be of quality, was something that we found to be super fulfilling, because then we had something to show to these kids like, yo, you did this. Like, of course
Facts.
we had our hand in it, but you sang it, you played the chords, you came up with the words, like. And I didn't get to see their reaction because I wasn't able to make it to their like showcase day. So James maybe could add some insight as to that. But at the least, from our side, it was amazing to have offered the opportunity and been a part of that process of showing these kids like, you can create something, it can be good, it can be great, matter of fact, and to have shown it to other people and hear the response of like, yo, this is good. I mean,
Yeah.
it puts a sincere smile on my face of like, man, that was these kids. It was just like the musicians I work with on, who are grown-ups, and professionals, quote unquote. It's like same process, it was awesome, man.
Faith is what we believe in. We believe in us. We believe and trust. God is good. God is good. God's with us. In God we trust.
Look, I represent greater goods, my intentions I come in peace. I know it's not only me that's fighting for what I believe. Talks with the young kings, they all got big dreams. Saying they'll make a way as a mirror of saying me. We all got different stories, we're unique in our own ways. Shout out to Fred and James for helping to make a change. Having each other back, sustaining our brotherhood. This feeling is mutual, and this group is exclusive. Giving God this glory for all the things he bought me, I won't take them for granted. That's why we sing.
Faith is what we believe.
We believe. We believe in us.
We believe and trust.
We believe and trust.
God is good.
God is good.
God's with us.
And God's with us.
In God we trust.
And God we trust.
We were all born with a unique gift that we should share with the world. And if we don't, the world loses a treasure. No matter what the dream, you could do it in faith. If you want love, fame, or wealth, trust us when we say, if you're looking for something to believe in, why not yourself?